Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror comedy from France, French language English subs, released in the year 2017, directed by Tony D. Datis, and this film is called The Mansion. So The Mansion opens up with a group of friends. They want to celebrate the new year in style by going to this secluded mansion away from everybody else, and they're just going to let their hair down and just have an awesome time. So they get there, they start dancing, and they start doing all the things that you would expect from young adults. But then unfortunately a very strange event occurs that forces them to realise that they're actually in danger. So the night goes from bad to worse, it turns into a living nightmare, and whether or not these people can escape with their lives still intact is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Mansion. Naturally, my excitement levels were very, very high coming into The Mansion because of the fact that French horror is the best horror in the world when it's done properly. And so it's a horror comedy, and I think, I really like European style of comedy, especially French comedy. When it's done properly, it's actually quite funny and one of the funniest as far as ViewWorldCinema is concerned. So mixing that in with horror, I was very excited, but I have my skepticism based on the fact that it didn't really get positive reviews. And so I thought, alright, well maybe hopefully this is a misunderstood film and I'll actually get a lot more out of it than a lot of other people did, is because there is a strong difference between humour in Europe and humour in the United States or Australia or Britain. It's a different type of humour. They really rely on deadpan sort of stuff, and so I wasn't expecting the deadpan humour coming from a French film, because that's something you get from Scandinavian film, but the European style is very different, and so I thought maybe I'll appreciate it more based on the fact that I am really into European cinema. And so the expectation levels weren't very high based on the fact that it's not really talked about, but I was hoping that it would actually appeal to me more than it appealed to other people. But unfortunately, after watching the film, I thought it was a very big disappointment, because it's nowhere near as funny as it needed to be, and it's not as scary as it needed to be. So the horror comedy aspect really doesn't work, and what it makes it out to be is a very tedious experience. I thought this movie had a lot more problems than it did positives, but I will go through the positives first. I thought it was actually very well shot. There were some very eerie moments, and there were some funny moments here and there. They were very sporadic, but when they actually happened, I thought, alright, well that was actually quite smart. That actually made me laugh, and it was actually more than just slapstick humour. It was more than, humour that you can see. It was actually humour that hit you on more of a one level. And so I thought, alright, well that was good, and that was shades of what the film was capable of. I thought the acting was very annoying. The characters really weren't there, and so because the characters weren't there and the characters were annoying, I was actually believing that this movie was going to actually have good kills and good gore. And that's what you want from a film like this. If you don't have characters you can relate to or sympathise with, you want to see them die in horrible, horrible ways. And so the first death scene, while it wasn't graphic, was actually quite morbid, and I thought, alright, well that really sets the tone. And so there are some set pieces that are very eerie, but unfortunately that's basically all I can say in a positive light as far as The Mansion is concerned. As I said, this bills itself as a horror comedy, and it's trying way too hard to be funny, and because it's trying hard to be funny, it makes it very cringeworthy, and I really didn't like that. There are other films that it reminded me of where it's forcing the humour to a point where you think to yourself, alright, well, you're trying too hard. It's just, there is a such thing as being subtle, and you're being subtle, and if it comes across as natural, it doesn't feel as though you're trying to make the audience laugh. It's making the audience laugh in a natural way. But there's no natural quality to this film. It's trying way too hard. You've got characters that I just wanted to see die in the most horrible way, but unfortunately there was next to no gore. There were a few bloody scenes, but the scenes, they lacked creativity, they lacked motivation, and so the horror aspect of the movie just doesn't work. There is a little bit of a twist, and there's something that happens that I thought, alright, well I've seen that before, and I thought that the overall menace to this film actually looked pretty good. But unfortunately the good look to the menacing presence wasn't executed in a way where I thought this movie was, it had a purpose. I just thought, alright, well this is going through the motions, it really isn't trying that hard, but because it's trying to hit you with very forced humour, it becomes eye-rolling. You roll your eyes at a few scenes, and I just thought, alright, this just doesn't work. And so the characters are incredibly irritating. You get no satisfying reward when you see their deaths. The deaths just aren't that gruesome. The horror aspect, it's not a scary film. So it's a movie that looks good, but on the inner, trying to carry that film across the line, it really struggles, and it becomes, as I said, a very tedious experience, and it's an experience that I was very, very disappointed by, because whenever a French horror film comes out, I'm expecting it to go back to the glory days, but unfortunately this movie falls well short, and unfortunately that is the case with a lot of very recent French horror films. They just can't get what made French horror in the past so good. Even French horror comedies, they were very, very good back in the glory days, but the glory days seem to have passed, and The Mansion is not going to give you any indication that those glory days are going to be relived anytime soon. So overall, for The Mansion, very disappointing. I'm only going to give this one 1 star. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.